Howdy, folks. Happy Halloween, everyone. Happy blah, 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 blah. Am I ever going to have a stream where I can actually talk my native tongue? Okay. So, I'm just going to interact with chat a bit, and I also want to ask you a few things, seeing as it's Halloween. So, first of all, hello, Joshua. Soda is singing the Silver Shamrock song. Soda also says, right, who's going to be telling ghost stories on this dark night? Not me. I'm not good at retelling stories, especially ghost stories. I'm not the right person for that. Joshua says, Slender Man was at my door. Funny thing is, when I first learned of Slender Man when I was a teenager, I learned it at my friend's house, and I said to my friend, I'm not going home. I'm sleeping here tonight. Okay. So this lights a fire and grabs the marshmallows. Nice. You know, I really want to do that one day. I really want to do a camping live stream. I really want to do a camping live stream. But the equipment used to do in real life live streaming is very expensive. So it'll be a while until I can do that. So down every year on the date of the accident, it runs as a warning to others, plunging into the gap, shrieking like a lost soul. Okay. Listy, great timing. I literally just finished watching Coraline. The credits are rolling now. Nice. Now you finished Coraline, go watch Wendell and Wild. You're going to like it just as much. You really are. Soda, I think I might put on a horror anime tonight. Go for it. There's a lot of really disturbing horror anime out there. There's a lot of horror anime that go further than most live action stuff in Hollywood. Boo. Leo's going Halloween crazy already. That's to be expected. Joshua, I've seen 9, Coraline, Slenderman, Scary Movie. How is everyone on the Night of the Dead? I'm doing good. I've had the Halloween feeling for a while now. I think it started maybe like the 20th or maybe the 25th. So it's all peaking now. And after I've done the stream, I'm gonna go a bit Halloween crazy. I've not had time to do anything Halloween related today. I'm trying to, but I'm so busy lately. Yeah. Listy, sadly, I do not have access to Wendell and Wild. Oh, dang. I hope you can find access one day. It's really worth checking out Wendell and Wild if you have a Netflix. Soda, I'm recovering Leo, after the stream, I'm going to play Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. Nice. I really want to play that once I sell a kidney to afford it. Okay, my first question to all of you is this. Okay? What is your number one fear? If someone put it in front of you, that'd be it. You'd be dead. No, not dead. You'd be, terrified. You'd be, demanding for it to be taken away. Or if there was a horror film about it, you'd never want to watch it. So I want to know, what is your number one fear and why? In terms of mine, I don't know. I'm scared of everything, really. There's a lot of animals I'm not scared of. People tend to pick animals, but I'm not that scared of most animals. I'm fine with most animals, including the creepy weird ones. I mean, my favourite animal of all time is an anglerfish. Anything disease-related freaks me out, because I've been diagnosed as a hypochondriac. So anything that has the possibility of giving me a disease, that I don't like. Listy says, I have 100 phobias. Next question. Pick one. Pick one and why. Joshua, what if they did an SCP movie? I don't know what that is, sorry. Don't know what that is. So yeah, let me know your phobias. You don't have to. Don't feel if they're too personal, don't share them. It's just interesting on Halloween night to share these kinds of fears. Leo, after seeing Internet Historian's most recent video, I'm terrified of caves now. Hearing about real cave disasters is definition of horror. I get that, but at the same time, I grew up climbing inside of caves a lot. So I've become a little desensitized. I think cave stories are kind of creepy, but I don't get scared by them as much as most other people. Because I was a very nature-obsessed kind of kid, and my parents were hippies, so they dragged us to different forests all the time. And a lot of the forests had caves, and my parents would hype up the caves and they'd let us go inside the caves or climb inside the caves. They weren't intensely deep or anything, but they were they were caves, like proper full-on caves that you could climb into, like climb down through and stuff. So like I grew up being like maybe like an amateur cave explorer when I was like 9 or something, I guess. But I also remember there was a local forest that wasn't too far from my house, and in the forest I had these caves that were very, very dark, and my parents built a folklore around it. Like, there wasn't really a folklore around it, my parents came up with it. They liked to do that kind of thing, and they said that, like, if you go in that cave, there's witches in there. And like, me and my brother found it really creepy but also really exciting. And like, in our heads we always thought, yeah, there's some evil witches brewing inside of that cave, and if we're brave enough we can go in and maybe see them. But Soda, big spiders are one of my many fears. I mean, like, if you were to like push and shove and like put a gun to my head and say, hey, what's an animal that scares you, I'd say spider probably. Not so much as like, I think what freaks me out about spiders isn't what they look like, it's how fast they move. I don't like fast moving things, and I don't like insects that are like, they'll move kind of like, stop, or worse, I hate those, they make me scream. It's not what they look like, it's just the movement puts me on edge. The movement freaks me out. I don't like the movement of some insects. But in general, I'm fine with scary things. Joshua, SCP is a game where you escape a facility containing anomalies that violate natural law and try to hurt you. There's a whole wiki discussing the Foundation. Oh, is it like an... I forgot what they're called now. Real-life roleplay kind of thing. Augmented reality? I can't remember what it's called now. Joshua, I kind of freaked out by snails because many of them are toxic. Ah! I didn't know that. I'm fine with snails, but that's because, like, most of my mates domesticate snails. They've got pet snails. So I'm kind of used to snails. But I didn't know some of them were toxic. That is kind of creepy. Leo, holy shit, I didn't know. After I heard about stuff like the case of Floyd Collins and the Nutter Butter cave accident, I wouldn't even stick my head in the cave if I had kids. And I would never let them in. Go deal drugs for all I can, just don't get in the fucking cave. It wasn't like a crazy... They weren't like crazy caves. They were just caves. They were just... it's hard to explain. But like, they weren't that scary. Like, I suffer from anxiety as a kid, and I was fine with them. I liked exploring them. But I liked exploring forests in general as a kid. I liked climbing things. Listed, the worst horror movie for me would be about moths. Not Mothman, actual moths. My late dad had a massive fear of moths. Like, he acted all macho and stuff, but like a little moth comes in, he's like, he'd be watching footy like, oh, West Ham, moth. But like, yeah, I'm fine with moths. I'm cool with moths. Living in a lot of like working class rundown places has meant that I've just lived with moths. So like, I'm fine with moths. Moths are cool with me. I'm fine with moths. Whiplash, Jambareeqi, are you a fan of the other 3 films in this main canon timeline, sorry? I've not seen the reboots. That's something I'll definitely say before we actually get into the review, is I have only seen the 1978 film and Rob Zombie's Halloween, and I barely remember Rob Zombie's Halloween. I barely remember it, so I'm not an expert on this franchise. But we'll get to Halloween. We'll get to Halloween eventually. Leo, may I reckon the game No One Lives Under the Lighthouse? That made moths creepy. Ooh, Soda, as long as they want the super narrow types. Okay, so one more question for this Halloween night before we start the review. To you, what is the scariest horror movie? And it doesn't have to be the full movie, it can be an actual scene. And why? I love learning which films scare people. I'm not saying, what do you think is the best horror movie? I'm asking, which is the scariest? Which is a horror movie that, like, you put any scene on in front of you and you're like, oh, no, turn it off. For me, it's definitely Shining. I've said this countless times before, and I know it's a really basic answer, but, like, Shining to me, like, you play any scene from that film and I just freak out. I really freak out. The first time I ever watched it, I couldn't watch it. I watched it as a young teen. Got it on TV one night, and I was just like, turned it off, and I was like, but I want to watch more. It's really good. Put it back on. Leo, you want a scary spider story? One Christmas I was chatting with my parents, and I remember my face felt itchy, but I ignored it to talk to my parents, and they were looking at me so weirdly, but I was focused on finishing what I was talking about. That's when I saw a long, black, hairy leg crawl across my eye. I had one of those big spiders in my face. Jeez, damn. I've not had that kind of experience, but my brother lives in Southeast Asia, so he encounters a lot of, like, exotic animals, let's just say. And like one time he opened the door to the bathroom, there was a massive friggin' toad in there or something, just like a massive huge toad just sat in the middle of his bathroom, and he's developed a fear of like toads and frogs since. Yeah. I'm sure my Australian family is like face some really bad things that make me go like, you know what, it's England's fine. Let's see. All the windows in our house are open constantly because the people I live in insist on it. So our house is full of moths all the time. Oh no! That's where we had a few moths a few months ago, the size of flipping kestrel. What? it's Kez! It's Kez the moth! Josh, do you believe in ghost trains? One stalks the bridge. I don't believe in ghosts in general. I used to be a skeptic, but over time, and as I got older, I've just stopped believing, which is kind of annoying because I always found it kind of cool if they did exist and kind of creepy if they did exist, but like over the years I'm kind of like nah, unlikely. Leo, I'm struggling to think of what movie scared me because the last thing or person that scared me in a film wasn't horror. Let me know. It doesn't have to be a horror film. I like knowing anything that scares, any kind of like media that scares you. Let me know. I find that really interesting. Josh just says the scariest movie maybe Shark Tale. Uncanny Valley Fish, yeah, I get you. So yeah, The Shining scares me. Barefoot Gen scares me. There are scenes in The Others with Nicole Kidman that have always frightened me. I'd say so. It's really hard to say. Definitely It Follows. It Follows really freaked me out, especially the hair pulling scene. And Babadook. Not the actual Babadook. There are shots of the mum, her face, that freak me the hell out and just make me so disturbed. I'm like, nope. But speaking of ghosts, actually, even though I don't believe in ghosts anymore, and even though this thing has been debunked, there is one picture of a fake ghost that always frightened me as a kid and will pop into my head when I'm like in the middle of the night going to the bathroom or something. I don't know if I might get the picture up, actually. I might get the picture up. So growing up, I watched a children's TV show that like highlighted mysteries and strange, spooky, scary stories, and they would kind of like explore them and work out, okay, did this really happen? That kind of thing. Yes, I think I'm going to find it, and I think I'm not going to sleep tonight, because every time I watch it, every time I see it, oh no, it's not as scary as I remember. It's not as scary as I remember. I'm going to show everyone else, see what they think. I swear it was worse than this. Hang on, I'm going to bring it up. I really want people to, I want a second opinion if you think, okay, this is kind of creepy. I think my imagination, looking back on it, is worse than what it actually is. But like, yeah, this picture. So it's a picture of, supposedly, it was supposed to be like the ghost of a little girl as a building's on fire. And it's fake. It's been debunked. And even in the TV show, they actually said like, oh, this is fake. But it still stuck with me as a kid, and like, I don't know, it's not as scary as I remember. What does everyone else think? I'm really curious if you find this photo kind of creepy, or maybe you might have found it creepy as a kid. Whoa. A lot of things are missing in chat now. Leo says, okay, the last thing that scared me, let's take that down, that scared me watching a movie was J.K. Simmons' character in Whiplash. He was so terrifying. It's hard to describe. I remember being in a feral position with my knees fucked. Oh, chat, slow down. Tucked up to my chest, and I was clutching a pillow. Yikes. So this is the episode Blink from Doctor Who. This is, I think, ever since I became a Ghostbusters fan, they don't scare me. I imagine them as a fun challenge. Fair enough. Joshua, I remember this video from Trailer Explainer where he discussed the possibility of dinosaur ghosts roaming around the world. That's actually kind of sick. I like that. Listy, oh, the Halloween episode of Smiling Friends scared me. Like, I knew there was going to be a jump scare, but because it was a freaking creature in a different style, it really took me off guard. I get you. I think, like, some people have said the same thing about Courage the Cowardly Dog when they do that. Leo can confirm it's the one episode I recommend to non-Doctor Who fans as an excellent 40-minute horror movie. Yes, even to you, Jam. Me and my friend watched it when we were teenagers and we literally ran out of the room screaming. Never did that before or since. Is Blink the one with the angels? I can't remember. Because my best mate Miranda showed me the angel one. But I don't remember being scared by it. Joshua, how was it made? I don't know. I have no idea how the Ghost Skull picture was done. Soda, in the story of the aliens are called the Weeping Angels, and every time you blink or look away, they get closer while making these angry roar-like faces. Yeah, I watched that with Miranda. I don't remember being scared. Neve says, ooh, it is eerie. So that's what she says about the Ghost Girl picture. Joshua, the Weeping Angels sound like SCP-173, the concrete statue that snaps your neck when you look away, even if you so much as blink. Okay. Leo, you hand me a dino ghost. Hell yeah. Hell yes. So does anyone else have any, like, media that scares them before we start the review? I really like learning these kinds of things. I'm going to take the picture of the ghost girl off of my computer now. I don't want it on screen anymore. It's not as scary as I remember, though. I'm kind of disappointed. Like, in my memory, the little girl was clearer and she had glowing eyes. Looking, staring straight at you. I don't know why my brain thought it was that. Give me a moment. I'm going to try and think if there's any others that freak me out. And I can't... I don't know. I remember one episode of that mystery show I grew up with as a kid where a little girl went on a school field trip to a Victorian building. And as she walked up the stairs, or down the stairs even, she bumped into a Victorian ghost woman who just laughed at her or something like that. I remember that being really freaky. Really freaky. And I also remember another episode that really got to me, and I don't know why, but like, at the end of the episode, they would always have like, hey, this is what someone has sent in. And one of the episodes had like, hey, someone sent in footage of a wild animal that's managed to get into like a suburban area, managed to get into someone's garden. It was like a, I don't know, like a panther or something. Just like a big wild animal, basically, that you wouldn't expect to see in a British garden. And I remember being really frightened by that. And when I had dinner that night, I kept looking out into the garden and then going, there's nothing out there, is there? Listy, Plague's dog scared me, but in a depressing way. Yeah, it's more, I'd say it's more sad than scary. Soda, the movie Perfect Blue had its scary moments. Hell yes. Yes. By the way, it's raining outside in Sheffield right now. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's very loud in here because of my thin walls. Sorry about that. Joshua, what year was the picture supposed to take it? Again, I don't know anything. You're going to have to look into it yourself because like, I don't know anything. All I'm saying is I remember of it. I remember seeing it as a kid. I don't know anything about it. It's best that you look into it. All I know is it's like the ghost girl in the building on fire. That's all I know about it. Sorry. Listy, when animals go nuts over an empty corner of the house or something, why do they do that? And don't they know what that does to us? True. I remember my cats doing something like that. Not so much as like going crazy, but I remember sometimes they would like stare at the corner of a room, like with like really wide eyes, just like look up, not even paying attention to me. I'd be like, hey, and it'd be like the whole time. And while I don't believe in ghosts, I grew up in a very, very, very old house for my childhood home. It was built in the Victorian era. So super, super, super duper old. And sometimes people have said that they saw things while at my house. And my brother says that one time he went to the toilet and there was a little ghost girl in the bathroom with him. And one time I had a friend stay over in my room. and they said there's like an evil presence in your room, and I was like, great, my brother gets like the innocent cute ghost girl. I'm like, you've got evil in your room. you don't deserve a nice ghost. It's like, oh, thanks, I get the evil ghost. So yeah, that's my only connection to like the supernatural, even though I don't believe in it. Let's see. I've read that. Sorry, Leo. One creepy and wholesome example I saw was a video of a kitten looking at thin air and then trying to reach for something. This was after the family dog died. Interesting. Right. I think it is time to start the review. So I will admit that like one of my weak points when it comes to reviewing is plot synopsis. So I'm very sorry if I explain the movie badly, but like it's my least favorite thing to do for reviews. I kind of save it for last. So we're going to talk about Halloween from 1978, directed by John Carpenter, and so in this film, it opens up with a little boy killing his sister. This is Michael Myers. And like even though he's being found killing his sister, his face is completely blank. He's emotionless. Now many years later, the same boy that's been sent to a mental asylum escapes the asylum, and he's out. This killer is out in a little suburban town. He's out there, and he spots a teenage girl called Laurie, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, and notice how she's very sisterly. Reminds him of his sister, so it's probably another victim. And the same night, Laurie is babysitting two kids called Tommy and Lindsay. And that very night, Michael comes to stalk Laurie and her friends. I hope that makes it clear. Oh, at the same time, Michael's psychologist, Dr. Loomis, is trying to track down Michael and stop him. Because, like, he knows there's he knows. Before this, though, Leah's just added something. Reminds me of a Billy Connolly joke. When you have guests over and you ask them how they slept that first night, they'll say it was fine and they slept well. Then you go, oh, really? Because I've often heard people say they can feel some kind of presence in here. That they don't sleep a wink. I will say that one time a friend stayed over and he talked in his sleep, and he was sleeping in the living room, and I went downstairs into the living room. He started talking. He said, like, get out of my house. I'm like, mate, this is my house. He's like, oh, okay. He was a weird kid. Anyway, let's talk about Halloween. Let's focus on Halloween. Okay. I will admit this is only the third time I've ever done a live movie review on Twitch, so I'm sorry if it's not great. I'm doing the best I can. But I think what's important to note is that John Carpenter's Halloween is the first of its kind. It's been frequently copied and cloned and mocked to death since 1978, but John Carpenter, he set the template. And he showed how every principle can be done effectively. Like, everything that all the horror slasher films are trying to do today, John showed, like, okay, this is how you do it. This is how you do it really, really well. So when you go back to the film, you might go like, oh, I've seen this before. I've seen that before. But what's important to remember is that, yeah, but that's because it was the first of its kind. And, like, John set the staple for so many tropes that would be later used. But, yeah, John is the one that was like, I'm creating this formula, but, like, I'm going to show you how it's done. I'm going to show you how it's done. So this says, now, for God's sake, he can't even drive a car. Loomis, he was doing very well last night. Maybe someone around here gave him a lessons. We'll get to that. Happy Halloween, Gao. But like, yeah. So Carpenter's Halloween, it kind of takes what Hitchcock was trying to do with Psycho. So you could say it's not. Even though it was replicated, it itself was trying to replicate another horror film. But I wouldn't say that Halloween is a copy of Hitchcock's Psycho. It takes what Psycho was and what it achieved and what Hitchcock was going for, and was like, okay, right, that was made in like the 50s or 60s, right? We can go further with that. We can go much further with that. We can be edgier. We can be more punk. We can go a bit more crazy and a bit more disturbing. Because it was the 70s. That's when they were breaking the boundaries and shit. So it's taken what Psycho was like planting. It took the seeds of Psycho and was like, John Carpenter's gonna have a bit of flavour to it, a bit. That's the best way to describe it. But like I was saying, the film, yes, it does all these like conventions and cliches really, really well, and I'd say so much so that it's almost like a film school for film students who want to learn the methods behind a great slasher movie. I myself have gone back to this film many times when I'm directing my own horror films, and I'm like, right, okay, that's how I can achieve this, that's how I can achieve that, because like there's so many like methods and compositions and directions that like they just work, and like if you do the same and you do it well, it works, because John showed that like that's how you pull off certain things in a slasher movie. But I think what's really charming about this film is that it makes really good use out of its low budget, and you never really notice how cheap it is. And when I say cheap, I mean cheap as chips. This film cost $320,000 to make. I'm not joking. But it doesn't. You can tell it's a B movie, but you can see that it's a competent B movie. It's a B movie with class and sophistication, and like someone really talented behind the camera. So the production values somehow look great, even though you can tell that John has, again, $320,000. Leah, I used to repeatedly watch a documentary about the behind the scenes. It's so interesting to me. Yeah, there's so many interesting details behind the way this film was made, because everyone involved, a lot of the people were just doing it for free, because like they just loved filmmaking. And like everyone was just doing something to contribute to the movie and staying up all night trying to get it done. I love those kind of productions. Like everyone was on board, and the whole film behind the scenes had like this really uplifting atmosphere, despite how grotesque and dark the film is. Everyone was really happy and joking and playing around. Yeah, it just sounds like a really fun film to work on. So Garrett says, I dressed up as Bob for Halloween from Bob's Burgers. Members of the public thought I was Freddie Mercury. Oh no. Leo, I think one of my favourite facts was how after a shoot they had to pick up all the autumn leaves into a bag. Yes, and rake them, since it wasn't shot in autumn. Can you imagine how tedious that must have been? Yes, I found that good, because like they shot in a place where there's like palm trees and everything, but like they had to kind of like improvise. And I like that. I like that there was some kind of guerrilla kind of approach to like getting the film made. But yeah, in terms of the actual production of the film, the finished film even, it's really good at building up certain things and creating suspense. Because it opens up with like just showing how normal Laurie's life is. Like how typical her life is. Like she's just a very good student at a school. And she gets on with life, and she makes money being a babysitter. She's very typical. She's very average, and I think that really works, because then you as an audience recognize someone like Laurie. Like she's not some kind of like quirky weirdo. She's not some kind of like Hollywood exaggeration of what teenagers are like. She's just a teenager, and so you resonate with her, and that adds to the horror. That really adds to the horror, and I think that's something that's often underlooked about Laurie's character. And like, yes, you can tell everyone in this film is played by someone in their mid-20s or maybe even 30s. There are some actors in this film like, you're not a teenager. You are not a teenager. But that's kind of the charm. We're just knocking things over, are we now? That's kind of the charm of it all. So this is all in the music. I wouldn't say it's all the music. I wouldn't say that like everything that works about this film is the music, but the music is very, very, very good. You got to remember that John Carpenter himself composed it, and like, while you could say, "Hey, it just sounds very simple," it's not. It's the compositions that John created for the film are not basic. It's just the way that he makes it sound. The way he makes it sound certain ways is very nuanced, very subtle. But if you really pay attention to the way he's composing songs, there is some articulation there. There is some creativity there. Like, for example, the Halloween theme. It's not just like here's a couple of chords that sound creepy. He's like playing around with the layers, and he's like building things, and he's tweaking things, and like as the song goes along to really amp up how scary it is. And speaking of the music, I feel like I feel like the actual music score gets often neglected. Everyone thinks of the theme, but like the actual music score is so damn good, so freaking good. And John mainly did the music because like to save money. Again, $320,000. Leo, to be fair, I never thought I would have worked out many weren't teens. Something about past fashion always makes teens look older. True, I guess, but like there are some actors in this film where like they look like they could be the character's dad. Lister, yeah, teenagers in the 70s, 80s looked 30 anyway. I guess, but you gotta remember the boyfriend character, like the guy in the glasses, like it doesn't even look like, hey, you're a teenager but you look 30. You look like you're a dad. You know, I also asked a member of the public whether they know who I was, and they said, "Are you the chef from Ratatouille?" Where was I? Sorry. But yeah, despite that, Laurie is constantly uncertain if something is following her, and I like that the film is interjecting the presence of Michael there. Like, you see her everyday life, you see her going about her day, but Michael is somehow there. He's somehow just there. And sometimes it's very obvious, sometimes it's not, and sometimes she actually notices. But his presence is always there. And, like, we notice him. But we know as much as Laurie. Like, we're thinking, what is this mysterious figure? Okay, is this in Laurie's head? Is this something that she's seeing? Are we seeing it too? Are we meant to see him? That is what is so interesting about Michael. But I'll definitely get into Michael as the review goes on. So the 70s and 80s where every teacher looks like someone's dad. I also like that the film has this small town setting. Like, it's not a famous city full of landmarks. It's just a typical average suburban town. And that adds to the creepiness as well. Because I can imagine, like, the average American looking at this film, looking at this setting, looking at the backgrounds, looking at the style of houses and being like, I live in a place like that. That looks like somewhere that I live. Could a serial killer turn up there? And the thing is, sometimes that's what's so scary, is that there are dangerous people that live in these kinds of places, but they camouflage into it. They disappear into it because they can make themselves seem like part of that environment, part of that little community in some way. That's what's so freaky. I think, like, I forgot what the name was. I think it was the Hungerford massacre. But one of the first cases of a mass shooting in the UK, it was just this really dodgy guy that lived in a really quiet, simple town where nothing bad ever happened. It was like barely any crime. And then he goes on a mass shooting. And, like, it took forever for, like, the police and the military to come over and, like, stop things because it was the middle of nowhere. And I feel like the setting for Halloween has that same kind of creepiness, that same kind of, like, sense of paranoia that you really kind of connect to. But, like, I think it's definitely important to talk about Dr. Loomis, because, like, this isn't just Laurie's story. It's not just about Jamie Lee Curtis. But, like, yeah, Dr. Loomis is mainly here to provide exposition, but not that much. He kind of, like, gives you little details. And a lot of the time he's very poetic and he's very abstract. He's kind of like, by the way, yes, Leo says, defo praise on the isolation factor. Yes, absolutely. And the thing is, in the film, there is only one cop character. Is that the only cop for the town? Which can happen. Sometimes a town will have barely any cops. So it's like, yeah, it's freaky. But yeah, as for Loomis, I do like that he doesn't give away everything. He just gives you the information that makes you build a picture of Michael's backstory, but not to the point where you're like, oh, Michael's that kind of person. Oh, that's who Michael is. It's just kind of like, okay, I've got a surface understanding of who this threat is, but I don't know much more than that. That's scary. That's very scary. Very, very scary. But, like, the way that he describes Michael, really eerie. Like he just says he's pure evil. He's like this force that can't be stopped. So that brings me on to my first clip of the night. So this is Loomis describing Michael.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
So yeah, it's just like I was saying before. Like he doesn't go crazy. He goes for it's just very poetic, very abstract. Leah, when a trained psychologist drops all professionalism and describes his patient as evil, then you know shit's gone real. Absolutely, totally. And like, it's really scary that like no other professional understands Michael like he does, and like he's warned other people and he's saying, look, and you have to understand how evil this guy is. Don't take this lightly. And like that definitely adds a sense of vulnerability for Dr. Loomis, because in a sense, even though he is the closest we have in the film to the hero of the story, he himself gets scared. He himself is frightened of Michael. And I think that works so well for the horror. Even the person that knows Michael more than anyone is scared of Michael, and has probably seen Michael at his worst, probably seen Michael do things that no one else has. It works. It really, really, really damn well works. So yeah, I feel like Loomis is so damn important. But at the same time, Loomis does have this campiness to him, mainly thanks to Donald Pleasance. He kind of reminds me of like the Hammer horror kind of heroes, and I definitely can tell that John Carpenter wanted that. He definitely wanted that. I mean, like originally Peter Cushing was going to play the part. So like that's the kind of character that Loomis was supposed to be from the beginning, and I think it works because Pleasance gives the film its personality and charm. Like beyond the whole holiday novelty of Halloween and the slasher shocks and the jump scares, I feel like having Loomis there definitely stops the film from being too nihilistic and helps it to be he brings a charisma to the table, I think. Because most of the characters are just generic teenagers, but like he brings a little flair there, adds a little texture to the movie. So I can imagine what Dr. Loomis saw in them 8 years. Absolutely. I mean, like even when he's tracking down Michael, there are scenes where, for example, where like a rock is thrown through the window, and he's like completely startled. It's like, oh god, what's Michael done now? What's Michael gonna do now? It's like he's armed with a gun and he's still scared. He's still terrified. Like, it's unlikely that Michael has a gun himself and he's still scared. He has the upper hand, but he's still scared. Freaky. Super damn freaky. But yeah, I was saying like how Loomis has like this campy personality, but like something I've noticed rewatching the film was the whole film has this surprising sense of humor. There are little scenes where it's kind of like, okay, I didn't remember having that humor, but like, it's not a bad thing. It's a very dry sense of humor, and I feel like the humor settles us before the horror comes in. I feel like humor can be so helpful for horror films, and I feel like Halloween does that so well. Like, for example, there's a scene where one of Laurie's friends calls her on the phone after having sex. And just as she's calling Laurie, Michael comes from behind and chokes her with the phone cord and starts screaming and choking and like moaning and all that kind of stuff. And Laurie thinks, "Oh, you're just bragging about your sex life now." I am, but no. And like you can even tell Laurie's kind of like a little suspicious at this point. But that's what I mean. You kind of like you've got this layer of like, okay, this is a comical misunderstanding, but what if it isn't? What if she isn't teasing? What if this is the cries of someone dying? And that kind of like taps into Laurie's fears and like, ooh, she's already feeling like someone's watching her. There's already these rumors. Ooh, a bit more. Leo, Donald always has this great mix of subtle camp and a lot of class. Yes. I got a similar impression when he was in Columbo. Yes, he definitely does. Like, he finds that middle ground of being like this very articulate and educated psychologist, You can tell he knows his stuff, but he's also got this little silliness that's there as well. I mean, like, one of the funniest parts of the film is where, like, two kids go up to the old Maya's house and dare themselves to go in, and, like, and, like, Loomis is like, get your ass out of there, from behind a bush. That's Loomis to me. That's Loomis. He could have just been, like, a generic, typical kind of, like, psychologist character who just goes around monologuing, but, like, they add a bit more to him there. They add a little more to him. They flesh him out a bit more. And that's what makes him human. Like, the thing about humans is, like, we have a sense of humor, even when we're scared. But I wanna definitely move on back to Laurie, and, like, one thing that I really definitely appreciated a bit more was Laurie's character. And particularly her babysitting skills. They're better than I remember. Because, like, she's really good with kids. You can tell that, like, she takes her education very seriously. She's not as immature as her other friends. She's kind of mature for her age, but she doesn't, like, act annoyed around kids, like, oh, I've got to babysit now. She enjoys babysitting, and she's really good with the kids, and, like, she knows how to talk to the kids in certain ways, or when a kid has a question or a concern or a worry, she'll sit down and talk to them. And I think that's what made me really like Laurie as a character way more this time. Like, I didn't recognize that before, but, like, there's something I really like about her compassion. She definitely has this compassionate side that, I noticed a bit more this time while watching the film. And, like, I feel like her having to babysit really adds to the tension. Because, like, it's one thing for her to be trying to survive on the night and run away from Michael, but she's also got the responsibility of babysitting someone else's kid and babysitting her friend's sister at the same time. So she's having to, like, scurry them off to different places and hide at different places, while also being like, oh my god, kill her on the loose with a knife. What am I gonna do? So, like, it's not a typical kind of, like, killers chasing after a teenager through a house. There's more to it there. The babysitting adds to the film, and, like, the babysitting was a big part of the premise that got John excited, and you can tell that John had a lot of fun thinking, okay, where is everyone? Where are the kids? Where is Laurie? Where is Laurie's friends? Really kind of, like, playing around with that. Really good. But, like, yeah, speaking of Laurie, love Jamie Lee Curtis in this film. Absolutely love Jamie Lee Curtis. For those who don't know, here's the interesting thing. She is the daughter of Janet Leigh, who was the lead of Psycho. So there's already that layer to casting her. But it was one of her first ever movies, and she was very, very nervous. Super nervous about the project. And, like, even after filming on the first day, she thought, you know what, I'm going to get fired after this. But, like, John Carpenter rang up and was like, no, you did really damn well. And she does. She definitely underestimated her performance. Because, like, while she still had a bit to go and she had to, like, have a bit more experience, for an early role, she does a really good job. Not just in, like, playing herself back and, like, showing that Laurie is a bit different to other teenagers with, like, her book smart and her maturity. And, like, the way she interacts with kids. But also the fear. I feel like it's one of the best performances of showing someone's fear I've ever seen. Like, there are moments in the film that are twice as scary because of how Jamie Lee Curtis is reacting or feeling. Like, there's loads of scenes in the film. Well, no, I want to pick a specific scene actually. There's a scene in the film where she's run out of the house and she tries to get to a neighbor. And the neighbor is just not responding. She bangs on the door and everything, and the light switch goes off. And, like, in that moment, you can feel, like, oh, the dread. Oh, God, no one's gonna help her. And you can, in her performance, you can see how she's just so distraught in that moment. But, like, it's an iconic performance, and there's a reason why. Jamie Lee Curtis has become, like, a scream queen, which definitely makes me want to show one of the most iconic scenes in the movie, which is the closet scene. Yeah, something that really reminded me by watching back that scene is that I really like that Laurie is just an average teen, but she's very good at adapting in this house. Like, as you saw, she saw a coat hanger and she turned it into a weapon. I think that's a really great positive to Laurie's character, is her survival abilities and what can foreshadow for the sequels. She's really good at, like, going, oh, right, okay, go hang it, right, go. She doesn't sit around. She's really good at playing. Jamie Lee Curtis is really good at playing up the screams, but, like, Laurie isn't just a screaming victim. She's also a hero in the film. So Leo says, it's so strange hearing Michael grunting and struggling because we usually know him to be quiet. Well, no, in the 1978 version, he's kind of noisy. He's kind of noisy, but I like it. He has this, like, breathing thing throughout the film. He has these very loud breathing noises, and he makes a lot of grunts as well. They're almost childlike because he's not really grown up. So there's a lot like this childlike kind of noises, but like they're not distracting. They're kind of frightening, and there are parts where it's point of view, and you can hear Michael breathing or like muttering or something, and like it's a really good like use of like he doesn't say anything, but like the sounds he makes are really freaky, really freaky. But this definitely brings me, speaking of like Michael's creepiness, this definitely brings me on to the death scenes in the film. The death scenes in this film. So what I know I keep saying this, but like this was a really cheap film, so they couldn't go crazy with the gore. There's no blood, but much like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the violence is. Our imagination fills in the violence, and like what our imagination comes up with is really gory, really gory. And at the same time, there are deaths where they don't need gore. They just need to show how the victim is suffering and how Michael is enjoying their suffering. That is enough. Like, they don't need to have like Michael go blah, 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 blah. They can just have someone having like the worst death ever. And there are deaths in this film that are genuinely disturbing looking back. And again, it's because the film is working with, okay, how can we shock audiences without blood? Show victims going through hell. And like I think one of the most disturbing deaths in this film is when Laurie's friend is killed in a car. And like the whole scene in general is a really good example of it's a really good example of how John pulls off so many great scares in this movie, like the composition, the wide angles, and like the timing, and like none of the like the deaths or the scare scenes are cheap or tacky. There's nothing misleading or like over the top about them. He basically goes like, okay, I'm gonna surprise you. I'm gonna keep it a bit relaxed. I'm gonna surprise you, and then I'm gonna go all in. And that's why a lot of his scares pay off. So I'm gonna show you that exact scene. The car death scene is, looking back, like, yeah, it's kind of scary. Yeah, I really wish that a lot of modern horror like took examples from that kind of horror filmmaking, because sometimes you don't need to go crazy with the violence. You can just show the realism of someone suffering, someone in agony, and that's enough to make you go like, what? Yeah. Soda, I'm here to talk to you about your car insurance, Michael Myers. So this is Jesus. Leo, oh Jesus, that was very visceral. I think the lack of editing helps. Yes. That I definitely agree. Like it sets up like a wide angle straight away with like her settling into the car, and you feel like she's just gonna drive off. You're not even thinking about Michael. Michael's probably in a house, but then vroom, vroom, music, and then it just keeps hanging on it, keeps dragging it out, and lets you see everything. It's not like a crazy kind of like, oh, look over here, oh, look at, whoa. It's just kind of like you're gonna watch this woman suffer. You're gonna feel her pain, and like they did that with like hardly any budget. They didn't even need a budget to do that. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. But like, yeah, the deaths in general are really well handled. And like, there's also a scene. I think what's really important to remember is like one of the first deaths is of a dog. I didn't remember this, but like one of the first deaths in the film is a dog, and I think that's really important because it shows how evil Michael is. Before he's even killed a human, he's casually killing a dog. And that is definitely something that's going to trigger audiences because everyone is like very protective of dogs and everyone loves dogs and their loyalty. So as soon as you've seen this character kill a dog, it's harder to watch compared to seeing killing a human because we see dogs are so precious. So once we got that scene there, it makes us A, hate Michael because oh no, doggo, and B, understand that like there are no boundaries for this guy. He's not there's no victim he won't kill. There's no victim he won't kill. At least I think most people block out the dog part. I think that's what I probably ended up doing if I'm honest. But what's interesting is that John Carpenter actually, for a lot of the scares and the deaths and that kind of stuff, he based them on horror carnival rides he went to as a kid. Like he went to all these kind of like ghost trains and stuff, and like that's how it inspired him to think, oh, okay, I have barely any budget, but that's okay, because I remember being scared by a ghost train as a kid. How did that make me scared? What was the dynamic there? How did that tap into my fears? And he took that and he was like thinking, okay, so I need to make Michael jump out in a way that an animatronic in a ghost train would jump out. But even though it had that inspiration, it never comes off as tacky. It never comes off as amateur. He takes the spirit of those ghost trains that he grew up with and makes them scary for adults. So good. So good. But like, I want to go back for a second. I want to go back to like the key characters, and like, it's not just that they're a great way of creating tension and like developing Laurie's character. We fear for these kids. We really do. And like, they add to the horror of the movie. Like, seeing kids being scared shows how much peril our characters really are in. And like seeing Laurie struggling to like assure the kids, no, you're safe. And you can tell that like as the film goes on, these kids are getting more and more scared, especially once they know that Michael is present in the house. Like seeing kids scared makes things even more scary. it really does. It's really freaky. But I think hang on. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I was trying to keep up with chat at the same time. I think something I've really kind of been ignoring, neglecting even, is Michael. I want to talk about his design. It's important to remember that his mask was originally a Star Trek William Shatner mask, but they didn't just take the mask. They didn't just take the mask and put it on his head and go like, that's scary. No. They painted it white. They took off the eyebrows, made the eyes bigger, they messed up the hair. And even though the origin of this mask is kind of silly, it is scary. And like just seeing that mask like in the dark, like just seeing that face in the dark is enough to make you like, oh god. And it adds to the Michael legend, the folklore of Michael's character and how he's not exactly human. Like, because you can't see a human through those dark eyes, but at the same time he is kind of humanoid. So there's this uncanny valiness to the mask that helps with that. Really does. So does Captain Kirk went mad after Star Trek was canned. But like, it's not just his mask. The film isn't just leaning on the novelty or the gimmick of his mask. It's his presence as well. Leo says it's kind of astounding that Shatner's face had been a horror movie villain for years, and yet he's never had a tantrum over it that I know of. True. Knowing Shatner. But what's interesting is the original Shatner mask doesn't even look like Shatner. But yeah, Michael's presence in this movie even though he doesn't do much, there are little things that his actor Nick Castle, who was just a mate of John Carpenter's, by the way, that happened to live nearby the set. Nick Castle adds these little details, and at the same time, John Carpenter was like under directing him and like saying, "Don't go crazy, don't go crazy with this role. I want you to keep things just normal, just keep them normal," and that works because you can see a human there doing human-y things, but they're very robotic at the same time, and they're very monster-like at the same time and ghost-like. So it's like this weird, uncanny mix of different things that are going off with the way that Nick is performing the character. Anyway, I just watched the first movie in H2O. Now watching the Tim Curry Worst Witch at the moment. Have fun. Tim Curry Worst Witch is very fun for Halloween. Yeah, and I know that this has become a staple of horror, but like I really like how the movie is taking advantage of the point of view. This is one of the earliest uses of the Steadicam. For those who don't know, the Steadicam is like a kind of camera that can be clipped to the camera operator, and it's like the camera becomes the camera operator. They become one almost, and that's really effective for scenes where we see Michael's point of view. And the reason why point of view shots work so well for slashers is that it puts us in the killer's shoes, and we get to see the victim's reactions. That's the focus, and it's almost like we're inside of Michael's head, but we can't help. We know what he's going to do, but we can't do anything about it. That's really frightening. That's really, really frightening. Listy, have you seen my tambourine? What? Why is seeing green tambourine? Weird. But at the same time, Michael, with Michael's character, they're never very clear on, is this a supernatural presence, or is this a human being behind the mask? Because John Carpenter is having so much gleeful fun with like, Michael's over here, Michael's over there, Michael disappeared, Michael popped up here. How did Michael get over there? But at the same time, Loomis is describing him as a human, as a patient in a mental asylum. So how can he be paranormal? And you don't really know. And I've heard that the sequels kind of explain things, but there to that. I've not seen the sequels yet. B, I'm talking about when the first, in the context of the first film, when it came out. Leo, never knew about the Steadicam. Hell yeah. Steadicams are so expensive and I want one. I really want a Steadicam. But I have found something that I really want to use for my next film. Is an it's hard to explain. It's like an electronic dolly cam. Almost. Like, it's almost like a remote controlled dolly cam. I want to get that. I want to get it for my next film. It's actually cheaper than building a dolly track or getting a Steadicam. But yeah, there's lots of shots in the film that like mislead you or even lead you into thinking, okay, is Michael of this world or not? That really makes you second guess what he is. And one of the major principles of horror is like not fully knowing certain things. And it goes back to my point about how Loomis doesn't explain every single thing about Michael. He just leaves things on the surface as little tiny details, and your imagination is filling in a lot of stuff. Soda, I missed the still cam. Too much shaking in new movies. Yeah, Steadicams are sick. And what's also interesting that I found out is that John Carpenter himself actually visited a mental asylum and met the patients, and it helped him to like better understand what it's like for someone's mental health to decline, and he took that and put it in Michael as well. So he's not just seeing Michael as like, okay, he's just a robotic, soulless, emotionless mass killer. There is some level of humanity there that's taken from actual mental patients. There's just so many layers to Michael's character that makes him more than just like, hey, scary guy mask. It really is. But I really wanna talk about one of the big appeals of this film, and a lot of the sequels and the reboots, and that is definitely Laurie going up against Michael. That's like one of the big things about this film. And what's interesting is like that's not the focus of the film. Laurie and Michael don't actually come face to face until like maybe 50 minutes or an hour in. No, really, that we don't get to see them face to face at that point. But like we definitely relate to her in this conflict because we ourselves can imagine how horrible it will be to have that sense of home invasion, having your privacy invaded, and like not being prepared for it. She isn't prepared. She's just here to babysit, and suddenly she has to survive. Suddenly she has to use things around the house. Going back to the coat hanger, she has to find things around the house. She has to adapt to what she's in to escape Michael. Not exactly beat him, but just get away from him. And that's where a lot of the horror is at its peak, because she isn't like, she doesn't have an upper hand. She doesn't have an advantage. She's just doing her best to survive. She's just trying to like avoid him the best she can. Like she doesn't know what she's gonna do, and she makes mistakes. Yes, she definitely makes mistakes. But I think that's really important because A, makes her more human, so then we see ourselves in her, and B, adds to the tension because like if she was doing everything perfectly and like managed to like, oh I've got this knife, I'm gonna kill Michael, end of movie. No, she needs to flub, she needs to fail, especially when she's in a sense of panic. She really does. Joshua, well, I have to go charge my phone. Happy Halloween. Cheerio, Joshua. Cheerio. But yeah, so like she's having to be very adaptable and very creative with what's around her and that kind of thing. And like when you see them going up against each other, you can see why certain sequels and the reboots see the appeal of, okay, it's not the film. A horror film doesn't just have to be about like let's knock off each victim. It can be a story of survival as well, and that survivor can be badass in their own way. Really so. So before we conclude things, I definitely want to quickly discuss the film's iconic ending. Like what I love about the ending is how flipping ambiguous it is, how suggestive it is. And it goes back to my point of like, oh, how you don't know whether Michael is supernatural. But like at the end of the film, Dr. Loomis has shot Michael. You think it's over, but is it? Let me find the thing. Where is it? Here we go. I love Jamie Lee Curtis in that scene because just seeing her breaking down crime and like knowing, okay, he's still out there, movie end. Like imagine trying to continue your life after not only being traumatized by a serial killer, but also knowing the serial killer is out there. It's a very nihilistic ending, very dark ending that also again builds into the Michael Myers lore. It's such a great ending. Really, I know it's weird to say, but it's one of the best, one of the best parts of the film is that ending. So this is Michael Myers is unstoppable, yes, and it's that invincibility that makes him scary. Because once you realize, okay, this is not an easy guy to kill, you spend the whole film just being like, oh god, how is he ever going to be defeated in this film? How is Laurie ever going to get out of this? Will anyone actually survive this? Because it seems like Michael Myers can't die. And that's one of the appeals of Michael. Some other serial killers, some other slasher killers have that same appeal, but I feel like Michael is one of the best of that. Leo, the wave of fucking Loomis's eyes. Yes. There's just dread. All you feel is dread and like credits. Such a haunting ending. And like it is pretty tricky to have that kind of ending for a film, but I like, if you do it well, you can leave audiences being greatly disturbed, greatly haunted, and maybe having nightmares afterwards. And what's really interesting is that this film was John Carpenter's third movie, just his third. he'd only made 2 movies before. One of them was like a cheap B movie sci-fi film with like Harvard robots. This is his 3rd film, and he managed to achieve all these things and show talent that early in his career. That's crazy to me. Super damn crazy. Leo, can you just imagine if there was never a sequel, like they continued with their initial plan to be a series anthology movies and the story ended there? I wish it went that way. I really do. Maybe it's not right for me to say because I've not actually given the sequels a chance yet, but I always loved the idea that John Carpenter wanted the Halloween movies to be a different Halloween story each movie. I liked that idea, and I really do wish that that's where it went. And like, I get why fans are like, oh, we want more Michael Myers. I get that appeal, but like, how many times can you tell that same formula? And why is that formula going to be better than seeing a different kind of Halloween story, which will sometimes be supervised by a horror master? Listy, no cheap jump scare before the credits roll. I freaking hate those. It doesn't work if every film does it. Yeah, there's no cheap jump scare. It's a mood. The film ends on a mood of like, I guess he's still out there. I don't know where he is. I don't know if we ever see him again. I don't know if he's gonna come back for Laurie. The end. It's really disturbing, really haunting. Hello, Cameron. You've just caught me just as I've finished the Halloween review. So before I wrap things up, there's anything that people want to say about this film? Anything at all? Yeah, if you have anything you want to say, because that's the novelty of these live reviews, is that you're always welcome to chip in, you're always welcome to butt in and say your own thing. Leo, especially when you have a film series literally called Halloween, it's begging for so many directions to take. Yes, 100% agree. There was so much potential there, so many things you can do with Halloween, not just Intruder. It doesn't just have to be Michael Myers every time. And like, maybe Halloween 3 Season of the Witch wasn't a great example of going the direction. I don't know, because I heard it wasn't good, but I've also heard people say it was good. But I don't think that like people's reaction to that should have like discouraged the studio or made filmmakers think, okay, so people don't want a different horror story every Halloween. Oh, imagine the kind of horror culture we could have where we had a different Halloween movie in the series every single year, and it was a different horror story every single time tied into Halloween. Imagine that. Imagine that being part of our culture more than just like, here's some slasher sequels. Cameron, O'Don, and we'll watch it once it gets uploaded to YouTube. Yes, so for those who don't know, I have a VOD channel called Jambareeqi Highlights. Go subscribe to that. Listy, I do kind of wish they'd done the anthology idea they originally wanted, a different film each time. Yep. So this says the film's a masterpiece. It is. It really is a masterpiece. And like, the more you study it, the more you understand it, the more you respect it. Cameron, I personally love the original 2 Halloween movies. The rest are guilty pleasures. Again, I've only seen the 1978 film and Rob Zombie's first movie. The Rob Zombie one I better remember. But I do want to see the sequels over time. I heard the 4 is really good. I've heard Halloween fans say that like 4 is like the best sequel. Leo, that would have been amazing. Yeah, that's what we could have had. And like, it would have kept John Carpenter in the mainstream for longer as well. Leo, every year, cool, I wonder what this year's Halloween movie will be about. Yes! Blame the Michael Myers fans. Like, I get why you love Michael, but come on. So I think that would work as an anthology movie like Creepshow. Not so much because like there's already loads and loads of horror anthologies out there. I feel like it'd be interesting if it was like a different story every movie. Like, that's unique in its own right. That really is. It's one thing to come up with like, hey, here's 3 short horror stories in one movie every year. What if it was a different movie every year? That's interesting to me. I find that much more interesting. But yeah, is there anything else people want to say? Before I head off and enjoy my Halloween night, what I have left of it. I've got my Toffee Whirls. The only Halloween snacks I've got on me tonight. But yeah, anything else people want to say about original 1978 Halloween? Well, okay, here's something that I would love to do, and I don't know if it's going to pan out, but I'd like this to be a routine thing, an annual thing, where each year I review a Halloween movie on Twitch. I really like to do that, but again, it's up to the viewers, they decide. But I will nominate Halloween 2 every week, next Halloween, next October next year, to make sure that it's a possibility. Cameron, did you get any trick-or-treats today? Nope, because I live on top of a pub, so I don't have trick-or-treaters. Leo, yes, exactly, a different story of a movie. That's an exciting idea to me. Yeah, like no one else would be doing it as well, because so many other horror franchises are like, okay, let's expand on the lore of the original, or let's do the original's formula again. That's all we get. That's horror sequel culture. We could have had a different horror sequel culture if Michael Myers fanboys actually weren't like demanding, we want more Michael. Soda, can't have any sweets in the moment. Ditto. I sing after having my toffee spells. But like, I'm trying to cut down on my sweets. I've got to do an action film this year, so I want to be in good shape. Cameron, what do you think of the Halloween theme? I talked about it earlier, Cameron. Again, I know you have plans to watch the VOD, so watch the VOD. I talk about the theme in the VOD. Listy, 365 days till Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Ages is the next Halloween. Ages. We got Christmas coming up next, and I will be doing my annual Christmas Day stream for anyone that feels lonely on the day. Leo's already excited for Halloween next year. I think I'm gonna get a bit more creative with my Halloween next year. Even though I might be in the Philippines by then, I'm gonna get a bit more creative with my Twitch streams, my videos for next year's Halloween. Yeah, I've been thinking about it. I have so many ideas. It's just finding the time. But yeah, I guess we'll wrap things up. Definitely wrap things up now. Hope you enjoyed the stream. Hope you had fun. That's the main thing. I really do hope you enjoyed this. I always get nervous about doing live reviews because, like, all I've really got to work with is a bunch of notes and there's no editing. I do get a bit anxious if I'm being entertaining enough, if I'm being fair on the film, if I'm being a good reviewer. So I hope that's true. I hope. But yeah, I hope you have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever time it is, and I hope you have a wonderful, fantastic Halloween. I really, really do. It's a brilliant time of the year where you get to embrace your goth side, your dark side, and like no one judges you for it. But yeah, cheerio, folks.